Alright, what's up guys, got another video of what if Luke and Leia fought Abeloth. So this is technically a part 2 to my last story of what if Padme's spirit wanted revenge on Darth Vader and Palpatine, in which Abeloth kind of uses Padme's spirit and influences her to get revenge on Vader and Palpatine for her death, which leads into Luke and Leia being trained as Jedi, and after Padme gets her revenge, Abeloth uses that to try and take over the galaxy. But if you want to know what actually happens, go watch part 1, which will be linked at the top of the description and at the end of the video. So I have a Cash App if you want to donate if you have a video idea you want to see, and if you do, I'll try to make it into a short or a video, so the Cash App will be linked down below from now on if you want to donate or anything. You don't have to, of course, but up to you. But if you like this type of content, then be sure to subscribe for more what if / fanfics, lore, comics, reviews, and video essays, and just all things Star Wars. But with all that out of the way, why don't we just dive right on in. So our story continues off from last time. Darth Vader watched as Palpatine was ripped apart and then put back together, and he endured the same fate as his dead wife ripped him limb from limb and he was somehow put back together. Hellfire surrounded him, burning his skin more than it already was. The netherworld of the Force had somehow made him survive even after death, but faced to endure this horror by the woman he loved for the rest of time. But from afar, Abeloth watched and smiled as her plan was coming to fruition. She manipulated the spirit of the Chosen One's wife and turned her against him, using her to get rid of the two major dark side users in the galaxy. Now it would be hers for the taking. Abeloth opened a portal and she exited, leaving Vader, Palpatine, and Padme in the netherworld. Abeloth was also known as the Mother, a dark side deity that would destroy anything in her path. She appeared over Coruscant and unleashed a massive force pull, and she ripped the planet apart from the core, destroying it and killing all 3 trillion sentient beings that lived there. She smiled evilly and felt through the Force, feeling a small Jedi Order, but at the helm, 2 major light side users, the children of the Chosen One, Luke and Leia Skywalker. Luke and Leia were now 30 years old and had been training in the Force for 20 years. For the past 5 years, they had started to rebuild the Jedi Order, with the help of an aged Obi-Wan alongside Ahsoka and other Jedi who survived like Cal Kestis. It was small, but it was coming together. The goal was to one day bring back the Jedi to what they once were. The Empire had been beaten, and the Rebellion had become the New Republic, with Mon Mothma becoming Chancellor. Leia had a son who she named Ben Solo, and Luke knew he would become a strong Jedi, and he would keep a watchful eye on him, as he was also the grandson of Darth Vader. The new Jedi Order was located in the temple on Yavin 4, and a few days had passed since the destruction of Coruscant, when news of it reached Luke and Leia. They were shocked, as was Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, and they wondered what could do that to a planet. Luke wondered if somehow a remnant of the Empire still existed, even decades after Vader and Palpatine's deaths, and if they managed to finish the Death Star, which they had discovered the plans to. But that's when they fell through the Force and felt a terrible darkness, something so horrifying they couldn't explain. Luke and Leia ordered every Jedi in the New Order into an immediate meditation to attempt to ward off this invading darkness. The Jedi formed a massive circle and each member held hands and meditated, concentrating deep into the Force. Luke and Leia had become masters, and they recently became co-grandmasters of this order, so they were the strongest. They had far surpassed Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and were on the level of Yoda in his prime. But together they were stronger. In tandem, they were a Force dyad that could someday surpass their father if he ever reached his full potential. Luke's thoughts turned to Yoda, who had recently passed away from old age, but his thoughts fluttered back to the darkness. The Jedi merged their auras into one massive light side beacon that could be felt all throughout the galaxy. This was exactly what Abeloth wanted as she felt this light and smiled evilly. She opened a portal and entered, traveling to the temple on Yavin 4. Leia was the first to feel her, then Luke, then everyone else. They opened their eyes in horror as they saw a portal being opened right before them, and out stepped the Mother, Abeloth. Luke could feel the power behind her. She was the strongest being he had ever seen. Cal Kestis unleashed his lightsaber and ran towards her, intending to strike her down, his dark side tendencies getting the better of him. The Force entity simply smiled as this little insect ran towards her. She used the Force to lift Cal into the air, and then broke his neck with a twitch of her finger. She tossed him aside like garbage, leaving the others in awe. Ahsoka knew what this meant. Luke and Leia had to survive. Ahsoka looked at Obi-Wan and the two nodded, using the Force to cause a massive wall to come down on top of Abeloth, distracting the Mother, and as they did this, Luke and Leia told them to guide everyone out. They would deal with her. But Ahsoka told them no, but they said they were the Grand Masters. This was their fight. But Ahsoka told them she was no longer a Jedi as of that moment, and decided to stay. The older students guided the younger students out until Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Luke, and Leia were the only ones left. Abeloth easily got out of the rubble and dust around her and smiled at the 4 light side users as they stared her down with lightsabers in hand. Abeloth smiled at this pitiful resistance. Ahsoka ran forward, twin blades in hand, but was lifted up by Abeloth as Obi-Wan went in for a counter-strike and to free Ahsoka. but Obi-Wan couldn't react fast enough as Abeloth disappeared from his line of vision, and Ahsoka fell to the ground. As Obi-Wan looked down, he saw a hand through his gut and watched Abeloth rip out his intestines. The old Jedi Master fell to the ground, dead, as Ahsoka ran over to him. Luke and Leia saw this with tears in their eyes for their fallen master and nodded at each other and both sprinted forward. The twins, one with the green and the other a blue saber, each ran around Abeloth until they both jumped forward, intending to strike her down. But she simply caught each lightsaber with both hands, and she picked up Luke, slamming him onto the ground onto his back. She ripped the saber from his hands and proceeded to pick up Leia with the Force and cut off both of her legs and her left arm. Abeloth then dropped the chunk of flesh that was Leia and left her to writhe in pain. Luke saw this and looked at Ahsoka, who was the only one left standing. He needed to get his sister out of here. Ahsoka reignited her sabers and jumped into the fray with Luke. The son of Anakin Skywalker ran forward with a burst of speed and unleashed a fury of strikes onto Abeloth, who simply dodged all of them. Ahsoka ran forward and the two combined their attacks into a beautiful array of Masters of the Jedi Order, all in an attempt to take down this horrifying monster. But it was no use. Abeloth was too strong. Luke felt into the Force, and even at his full potential, if he ever reached it, the mother would be at least a dozen more times more powerful in the Force. He didn't know what to do, and in this instant, Luke faltered, which gave Abeloth the chance to rip his right arm off. Ahsoka saw this and Force pushed Luke back and proceeded to take on Abeloth with all her might. Losing blood fast, Luke saw this and used the Force to stop the bleeding, and he ran towards Leia, who was barely alive, and he picked her up and ran towards the starship with the other students. He boarded with Leia, and as the ship jumped into hyperspace, he watched as Abeloth ripped Ahsoka in half. That's when Obi-Wan's Force Ghost appeared to Luke and told him about the Ones, the father, the son, and the daughter, and the only way to kill one was to go to Mortis to find a certain blade, and Luke realized this was possibly the only way to stop Abeloth. He thanked Obi-Wan and he disappeared into the Force. 2 months would pass and Luke and Leia would heal their wounds, with Luke getting a cybernetic right arm and Leia getting cybernetic legs and a cybernetic left arm. They each learned how to train and grow stronger, despite their lack of limbs. During this time, Abeloth wreaked havoc on the galaxy, killing trillions in such a short span of time. Luke and Leia researched the blade Obi-Wan's Force Ghost had spoken of, and discovered it was called the Blade of Mortis. And it really did have the power to kill the Ones, as when Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan were on Mortis. This is how the daughter and father died. Luke and Leia hid their students in an old Jedi temple on Tython and headed to Mortis. They would finish what their father started and finally put an end to the Ones. They landed on Mortis and the twins could feel the power of the Force, both light and dark. They traversed the planet until they came across ruins that used to be the home of the Ones. They walked inside and on the floor where it was left so many years ago was the dagger of Mortis. Leia smiled at Luke, but out of nowhere that's when a portal opened up and out walked Abeloth. She sensed what the Skywalker children were up to and she was going to kill them before they killed her. Luke and Leia looked at each other and nodded, each knowing what needed to be done. They both ignited their sabers and sprinted forward, with Leia jumping over Abeloth while Luke engaged in battle. Abeloth easily blocked Luke with one arm while she caught Leia by the neck and slammed her on the ground, creating a massive crater. She used a force push on Luke and sent him flying backwards. She was only toying with them. She picked up the dagger and stabbed Leia in the gut as Luke screamed and saw the light from his sister start to vanish. A fire burned inside of him, and he unleashed everything he had into a force push that sent Abeloth flying into a wall. He ran over to Leia and she was still alive, but losing a lot of blood. He used the force to pull out the blade and used force heal to somewhat heal the wound. But as Luke was healing Leia, she saw a hand go through her brother's chest. He coughed up blood, and Luke looked behind as he saw Abeloth with her hand through his chest. She ripped it out, and Luke coughed blood onto Leia and fell onto her lap. She began crying and begging for her brother to hang on, but Luke told her it was okay. She had a son she needed to raise. He knew she would lead the Jedi Order into a new age, and unlike past Jedi, Luke told his sister he loved her, and took his last breath, dying in Leia's arms. Her eyes flickered from normal to yellow, but stayed normal. Abeloth laughed, calling Luke a pathetic insect, but before the mother could react, she felt something in her stomach and looked down to see the dagger of Mortis in her gut, with Leia holding the blade there. Abeloth screamed in pain, and Leia ripped out the dagger and stabbed her dozens of more times in a fit of rage. The mother fell to the floor, grabbing her stomach, and just before she died, she returned to her human form and thanked Leia for setting her free, and disappeared. Leia dropped the dagger and ran to her brother's body, picking it up. She returned to Tython, burying Luke by the temple, and she began the process to rebuild the Jedi Order. 5 decades later, Leia died of old age, and made her son Ben Solo the Grand Master of the new Jedi Order, and the daughter of Anakin Skywalker joined her brother, Luke, her friend Ahsoka, and Master Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Force. All the while, Padme continued the torture of Darth Vader in the Netherworld. Alright, so that's gonna bring this video to an end. Definitely got pretty dark with Abeloth murking pretty much everyone, but you know, that's kind of how I feel like it would go, just way too overpowered, especially in canon, like with no character being anywhere close to Legends Luke, it's just not happening. But I've liked writing this, and I feel like the storyline is pretty interesting. It's like different eras, I guess, with Padme getting her revenge, and then that leading into Luke and Leia, and just the whole thing with Abeloth, and then at the end with Ben becoming Grandmaster. He'd be in his mid to late 50s. And let me know down below if you want to see a continuation of the story with Ben and like the new Jedi Order having to face a new, bigger threat with like the Yuzhong Vong, or maybe Palpatine returning somehow. Just let me know if you want to see that, or also just any other videos you want to see in general. And if you like really want a recommendation or something to be made, you can always donate to the Cash App, which will be linked down below. Also, if you want to go check out my other channels, that'll be linked down below as well. But with all that out of the way, I will see you all in the next one. Peace.